So the next thing we have in our list for the drawing tools are the rectangle and the next ones. All right, so rectangle, let's begin with the rectangle. So just as you can guess, the rectangle just takes 2 dimensions. So you click the first point and you drag it out to the next point that you need it to. Then you click the last point you want. So when you have gotten to the last point you want, you just click and then it commits it. All right, so that's just the rectangle tool. So you just click a point and then click the next point. All right, now one of the things I want to point out is aside from the freehand tool, I haven't been dragging. All right, so I just click and I move my mouse. I didn't click and drag. You know, click and drag is to click, hold, and move. All right, so not to click and drag. Now, if you do click and drag, it does the same thing, but what I do is I click, then I move my mouse so that I can do it freely. You know, I'm not holding on to it. All right, so until I click again before it commits to the shape. All right, but if I do click and drag, immediately I leave my hand in the air, it commits to the shape. All right, oh sorry, that was not a click and drag. So immediately I click and drag and I leave my hand in the air, you see it commits to the shape. All right, so that's that. Then that's that for the rectangle tool. All right, so you could draw accurate rectangles by looking towards the dimension. So the lower right, you can see that we have the dimension along. First one is dimension along the x plane, and the second one is direction along the y plane. So xy. All right, so we want it to be wide. You know, the wide part is going to be, let's say, let me make it 6,000. I'll do that 6,000. 6,000, no, not 60,000, 6,000 and comma by, let's say I want it to just be 1,000 long, high along the y-axis. And you see like that, it gave me an accurate. All right, so if I want to draw a square, you know, I just do 4,000 and it just gives me a perfect, say it gives me a wide, no, not a perfect square. All right, so but it gives me the 4,000 along that, right? So if I want to do a perfect square, you see that line showing right there. When you have that diagonal showing, all right, it's just trying to maintain the, you know, the actual, how do you put that stuff? All right, but just leave that. So if you want a perfect rectangle, you do 4,000 comma 4,000. So for 4,000 on the y axis, 4,000, sorry, 4,000 on the x axis, 4,000 on the y axis, and that gives you a perfect rectangle. All right, so that's that for the rectangle tool. You could really use it for different things. All right, you could use it for so many things, so many ways to use the rectangle tools. All right, so with that being said, you could use it for a lot of things. You know, you probably use it majorly when you're dealing with walls. All right, so now one of the things you will quickly notice is that the rectangle can only go along the x-axis or along the y-axis or along the z-axis. All right, if you remember what we're dealing with, z-axis, which is the height and the depth. All right, because if I look towards this direction and I use my rectangle, I could literally draw along the axis, and you see it's now on it's now on the z-axis and the x and the y-axis, no longer on the x-axis and the. But you can notice it's not like it's a 3D shape. It's just drawn in those 2 dimensions instead of the flat 2 dimensions that we have. So, but you notice that it's only 90 degrees and it's only going along these 3 planes. It's not going inclined. You know, like let's say I draw a rectangle that looks like this. Let's say I draw a rectangle that looks something this, you know, see how it's curved. All right, so but that's a freehand, it's not really a rectangle, but you get the gist. So normal, you can't do that normally, so you have to get a rotated rectangle. Sorry about that. So now what rotated rectangle does is, if you notice, whenever you see the protractor, it wants you to select first of all, you select the starting point. Then next thing it wants you to do is to select the angle you want it to rotate the rectangle. So I wanted, let's say I want it to be rotated towards let me see, I want it to be 4 meters. That's for m rotated along 45 degrees of angle. All right. So I press enter. What that does, it rotates it along 45 degrees, and it gives me the height along that time, that part to be 4 meters. And then I can just click and drag. Now I can still rotate it to choose how it goes. All right. So you can see it's a rotated rectangle, meaning it can rotate any axis you wanted to go. It can rotate along any plane, go along any time. So but just using it on the ground, I click the first point, I select the second point, which I could choose the second point when I've kept my mouse, or let's say I kept it along this plane. I get my mouse here and take it along that plane. Now that's a normal rectangle. So if I click it this way and I go this way, then I could just pull it out. You see how I'm pulling it out? It's going flat, but I could still rotate it even further by pulling it upwards, and it goes up like that, like so. See right there? So it's quite a robust tool, because from this you could do a whole lot of things. You could actually do a lot of things with this. All right. So that being said, I think that concludes that for the rotated rectangle. So the first click sets the starting point. The second click sets the length of the first part of the rectangle and the angle. All right. Very important. So you could one of the things you could do to have it be more under control is to add the use of the tape. All right. So say okay, you could add the use of the tape. All right, so let me just quickly do a detour. And if you come to a protractor is like your angle version of your tape tool. All right, so I do a tape tool that's this angle, and I just tape this and bring it out like that, like so. If I come to the rotated rectangle and I just want to do a rectangle along this axis, I'll just do this, put it here, and then I'll pull towards this line, and like that I did my rectangle towards that axis. So if I wanted to go up, I could just do that again and then put it upwards, and then my rectangle goes upwards from there. So you want to play with these tools and play with them till you understand how they work. But you majorly understand how they work when you try weird things in your mind. You look at weird shapes and trying to, okay, this looks rotated. I can rotate it like this. All right. So what that being said, that's rotated rectangle. All right. So then the next thing to is the circle. One of the things I will start by explaining is, if you understand how graph or how computer graphics works, one of the things you need to take note of is that there are no circles. I'm sure that sounded weird. There are actually no circles in computer graphics. Everything you see that looks like a circle is a collection of lines that are curved, that are angulated. All right. So what a circle is like is say this is a line. Let's say we have point A. Let me just do a little bit of illustration, because this understanding. So this is point A, and then we have point B. All right. So we want a curve to go along this point to this point. So if I use my line tool, I could just use my line tool and illustrate. So I go like this. I go like this. All right. So let me just lock myself to the top view, so that all right. So I want to come from here to this point. So I come like this, I go like that, like that. All right. So let me just try to be more accurate. So I go like that, low, like that. Oh Jesus, like that, 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 like that. Now you look at this, it could look like an arc to you, but you notice that it becomes curvier the more lines and the more vertex I have. But it doesn't mean that this is a curve. It looks like a curve because, yeah, if I go further outward, you notice you can't notice it's a couple of lines joined together. The further I go, the more it looks like a curve. All right. So, but the point there is there is no circles, there's no curves in 3D, there's no curve in a computer. Everything you see is an illusion, right? The actual thing that happens is lines joining lines and joining lines, vertex lines, vertex lines, vertex lines that are broken together. So if I show you carefully, if I go back to the arc tool, let's say I have the 2-point arc tool. I want to join an arc from here to this point. Now, do you notice that when I draw the arc, there are sharp edges? You can see those sharp edges. Those are the sides. All right. So what that means is this is an arc is made up of this arc is made up of lines, various lines that are joined together, and those lines are actually what makes the arc. All right. So it's not like maybe so if I should take an eraser and I all right, so that's grouped together. So but if I were to use a pen tool to break that, okay, I couldn't break that. Right, but you get a point. You get a point. So that being said, that's that. There's no circles in 3D. It's just lines, 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 lines that are broken to little points to the extent that you can't see them. All right, it's very important that you take note of that. Why? Because when we say we want to draw a circle, it's the same thing. If you look closely, you notice that the lines, when the farther I draw it, the more it's obvious that this is a straight line to this point, straight line to this point, straight line to this point. Now, when you're working with software like Blender, you notice something like that as well. All right. So don't forget this course is a 3D course, not a SketchUp course. All right. So we could be switching from softwares to softwares where doing explanations. All right. But our main software for modeling is our Google SketchUp. All right. So, but that being said, you get the point. So you can quickly see that this is not a circle because everything is curved. It's just a line curved at this point, inclined at another angle, inclined at another angle, inclined at another angle, and it keeps going round and round, carefully calculated by the computer till it comes back to the starting point. So that's what a circle is. Now, why did I explain all that? You could choose how curvy or how circle-y, if that's in English, or if that's English, your circle would be. And if you look to your lower right, you see sides. Lower right, that's this part. You see sides. So when I click and drag, first of all, it wants to set, okay, sorry, before I click and drag. If you look to the sides, you see it has information there. So you could actually go ahead and type in the amount of sides you want before you click. All right, say I wanted to have 255 sides. What I would do automatically is when I draw, you can quickly, no, oh, wait, hold on. Okay, sorry. All right. So I forgot. Sorry, I forgot to hit the enter key. All right. Now, so when you want to draw the circle, you see the total number of sides. So you could check check the sides or change the sides to by default it was 24. What that means, if you count, you find out that this is actually 24. I'm not going to do that, but you could count it. All right. So, but when I draw this, obviously it's not looking like a circle, but I want it to look more like a circle. So about 255 should be very good. So I press the enter key and it commits. So by the time I draw this now, you notice that this is more curvy. It's almost not noticeable that there are points that are, you see, those snapping is showing you how many sides they have. All right, so that's that for the circle. So you can use that to draw as many circles as you need to draw. So the last one there is a polygon. All right, so a polygon and a circle, they're very similar, very similar, because you get to choose the amount of sides. So for a polygon, we have 6 sides by default. So I click and drag to drag out, and it draws out the number of sides I want. But on my before I click and drag, I can decide how many polygons I want. Say I want a polygon, the least size of a polygon is 4 or 5, but it's actually 3. All right. So people would argue that, but theoretically speaking, it's going to be 3 because 3 is the least you can do. If you have 2, no shape can have 2 sides. So if I put down 3 and hit enter, when I click and drag, you see it's creating a rectangle. All right. So, but if I do, let's say I do 7 and not inscribe radius, no, not there. I hit escape, I hit 7 and I click enter again, or I press enter. Then I click and drag. You see, it's bringing out 7 parts to it. So I could decide to do that. So you can see the different things you can achieve with these tools. And suddenly you find out that your drawing tools are becoming robust and you could actually create a lot of interesting shapes out there. All right, so that brings us to the end of the drawing tools. All right, so I'm just going to stop the video here and start the next set of tools in another video. All right, thank you very much and see you in the next video.